All right, okay.
It could be a question.
Yeah, it can be the first opening comment after new attendees.
Okay,
Okay, let's do it.
Warning.
I'm still trying to adjust this damn.
You want to turn off the waiting room,
Yeah,
Judge?
let's do it.
Yes,
Let's
let's
play
do it.
ball. Scott, how you doing, sir?
Good.
Good.
Parts are all here.
Here they come.
Mary, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm glad to be
Marlene,
here.
how you
Thanks for
doing?
having me.
Glenn, how you doing, sir?
I'm all right. I can't
Oh.
complain. I will anyway.
We'll give you time to complain if you want. Carolyn Wetzel, how are you? Ed, good to see you, sir.
Never take complaining off your menu.
Complaining is a basic human right.
There you go.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start, folks, and it's good to see you all. Marcia, good to see you.
Remember, you are muted, Marcia.
I'm just finishing dinner because it's 8 p.m. here.
Oh,
gracious, we better get going.
Yeah, I'm in Italy, so it's another, I'm in another place.
All right,
Yes.
well, I want to welcome, my name is Bill Porter. If you haven't noticed, I'm growing a beard. I'm going undercover later on, so anyway. I want to welcome you to the February meeting of the Neuropathy meeting. And February is a busy day. Tomorrow is Groundhog Day. Then we have Valentine's Day. Then we have President's Day. And during that time, we have Super Bowl. So
is
it's a
a busy month.
busy time.
Which one of those is important?
The busy time will be Valentine's Day. You cannot forget your Valentine. And just
Judge, can you turn off the waiting room, please?
anyway. All right, Judd, can you bring up the agenda, please? Oop. There we are. Okay, as you can see, we're going to have a nice welcome from Bill. New attendees. Then we're going to have open discussion. Then a break. Then we're going to continue with open discussion. And then we're going to have Pat with our closing remarks. And then we're going to have overtime. So what first I'd like to do is find out how many new attendees do we have?
Perhaps we can ask them to raise their hands so we can see, please. There we go.
Okay, can you remove the agenda? Okay, the new people, and before, what I'd like you to do, if you're a new person, is first, please give me your first and last name, where you're located, the type of neuropathy that you have, and how you heard about us. And also, you will find us a very caring and supportive group. And so I'm going to call on the first person who,
Looks like Bernadette C.
Bernadette.
Hi, my name is Bernadette Clark, and I'm from Wells, Maine. I actually had to research to find you. So I did some research and found you, and that's and I have so far it's idiopathic neuropathy, but I have an EMG testing, a second one on February 25th. So hopefully we'll have more information. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bernadette. Thanks for coming. Who's next?
Carol?
Carolyn, go ahead, sir. Ma'am, excuse me. Got my ma'ams and go ahead.
I'm Carolyn Wetzel, actually located in Ashland, Oregon. I found out about you guys searching maybe a year ago for my mom, and she is a part of your group, Margaret Wetzel, but busy today. We were already on a Zoom call with something else. And 2 weeks ago, after a nerve study, I also was diagnosed with peripheral myopathy. Good grief, neuropathy. I have not been back to the doctor who ordered it, so it's early stages. They said it was moderate to mild. So I am at the beginning stages. My mom has had challenges for many years, so I kind of know about things from her. But since there's no group in Oregon, I decided I would jump in on this group. I have actually sat in and joined the group once when I was visiting her back east as well. So
Well, we're certainly happy you found us again, and welcome, Carolyn.
thank you.
Appreciate your comments about where you are with your PN journey. You'll have a chance in a few minutes when we go into open discussion to ask questions, raise concerns, whatever, to the group.
Again, let me also say for the new people, at the bottom of your screen is a button called React. And you can press that and you can lower or raise a hand. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand, and then when you're finished, you can take it down. Okay?
Looks like Michael DeToro is also new.
Okay, Michael, you're up, sir. Go ahead.
Muted.
You have to unmute, Michael.
Okay, here we go. Sorry. Yes, thank you for being here. I live just outside Boston, Massachusetts, and I had a peripheral neuropathy for about 10 years or so. It's idiopathic, so nobody knows the cause of it, but I've been attending a lot of these wonderful sessions from CJ. He has given us a long list of wonderful places for us to continue with our session. And so this is my very first one, and I'm excited to meet some new folks. So here I am.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very welcome. Okay. Was there anyone else who have missed? It's a new person. Pam, go ahead, ma'am. You have to unmute. Pam, you've got to unmute.
There we go. Okay, thank you. This is my first time and I'm very new on an iPad, so my learning curve is huge. I live in Morristown, New Jersey. I'm 83 almost this week. I'll be 83, and I was told by a couple of doctors maybe 15 or 20 years ago that I had idiopathic peripheral neuropathy. I wasn't given anything to do about it, and it's gotten a lot worse in the last year or two. I've also learned that I have diabetes, and I think it's possible it might be connected with that. I don't know. I keep exploring. I'm going to a neurologist who I hope will be able to help me with this. But it's distressing me a lot. And when I found out that you existed, that there was a support group for people with this, I was so relieved to know that I had someplace to go that I could understand and be understood by the other participants. So I'm happy to be here. I appreciate the fact that you are available to me, and hope that I will add something to the group.
Well, I'm sure you will, Pam. Thank you. And I guarantee during the open discussion, if you have any questions, you can ask. And also, many people here have different types of neuropathy, and I'm sure towards the end, you will have a lot of your questions answered. And if not, we go into something called overtime. And if you feel you have something that was not answered, all the new people, if you feel you haven't found out what you're looking for or got an idea of where to go, we always could go to overtime. Okay.
Yeah. One thing I'm wondering that I want to bring up right now is that my experience with Zoom has been that it has a time limit on it. How does that affect? I'm not, I don't pay anything to belong to Zoom, and I don't know if I need to be able to stay on a conversation longer than like 40 minutes or so.
No, I think you'll be fine, but if you go past 40 minutes, you have to write me a check for $25.
Yeah,
No, you're
the
fine.
40-minute limit is only for people who have free individual accounts on Zoom, which this particular group does not partake of. This is a different kind of account.
I think it's when you're setting it up, right? When you're mentoring a group.
It's 40 minutes on Zoom calls that you originate if you
Yeah.
have a free account.
Yeah.
We have a paid account, and there is a limit. It's limited to 24 hours. And but so far we've not managed to come too close to that limit.
Thank you.
Make a long story short, Pam, you're in good shape.
Thank you.
Right.
So don't worry about us. We've gone 23 and a half hours once, and we all got tired and went to, fell asleep. But anyway, okay. Is there anybody else who is new? Yes, Mary, go ahead.
Hi, I was actually new in January, but we didn't have time for introductions. I'm one
My
of the
fault.
I'm one of the people, and I very much enjoyed the January presentations. So I'm back. I was part of CJ's group also. And then he's taken a break, a well-deserved break. And he also, gave us some options to explore. And so I decided to go east. I live in Madison, Wisconsin. I've lived in Wisconsin my whole life. I'm 73. I woke up one day in 1985 and something funny was going on with my right foot. And at that time I was teaching full-time, plus very active in sports, doing triathlons, playing full court basketball, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I went to 4 different doctors over the next 6 months, including a neurologist. The word neuropathy never came up. So I gave up. The pain and the weird sensations were still there, but I soldiered on. And then in 2009, I was seeing an orthopedic doctor for a back problem. And like I did every time I saw a new doctor, I mentioned what was going on in my right foot. And right away, his eyes, lit up and he said, "Oh, I'm sending you for an EMG," which he did. And the guy who did it was a resident at UW. It was July, so it was that turnover time. Bless his heart, he had a hard time doing it. And then the head honcho came in. He looked at like the ticker tape of the results and he goes, "Oh." And then I said, "Well, what?" And he wouldn't tell me. I was like in shock. He said, "Well, I got to send this back to the guy that sent you here." So it's sort of the story of my neuropathy journey is, even though you might see a lot of medical professionals, you are kind of on your own. And foundations like, the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy, I found has been very useful to me. I love the webinars and I highly recommend them. And that's about it. I'm surviving. I feel very lucky. I don't have neuropathy anywhere else, but I do have great pain, and it's gotten worse over time. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think that's about all I need to say right now. I'm really glad to be here.
Well, Miriam, we're glad you're here, and your story to me and everyone here is very, very, very familiar about doctors and oh my gosh, and oh yes, and do this and do that. And anyway, okay. Is there anybody else I've missed?
Lee Lefton has his hand up. Lee?
Lee?
Hi there. I was here once before, but I figure I'll go ahead and reintroduce myself. I'm Lee Lefton. I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I've had peripheral neuropathy. I think it was diagnosed in 2015. And yet nobody, and I probably saw 4 or 5 doctors, nobody would use the word neuropathy. And I have a nephew who happened to go to the Mayo Clinic for functional neurological disorder. And he said to me, I know you have pain. I'm going to send you a video from the Mayo Clinic and you take a look at it. Well, my wife and I went, oh my God, those are my symptoms to a T. So I arranged to do a Zoom session with Mayo in Arizona to be evaluated. Now, they couldn't really evaluate me over the phone, but in giving them all my information, they said you have something called central sensitization. And I don't know if any of you have heard of it. I imagine you have. And so they said, we have a program. It is a 3-week program. You come here, it's 8 to 5 every day. And we won't be able to help your pain physically, but we will give you the tools to manage the emotional and the physical aspects of your pain, which they did. And it was a wonderful program. It was CBT and exercise and stretching and meditation and a whole series of things. And I did these exercises continually now. And again, hasn't helped my pain, but it has enabled me to work with it. My neuropathy came from my diabetes. I was diagnosed at age 16. That was 58 years ago. So you can do the addition and figure out how old I am. And, it's been pretty much a lifelong journey. And there are days when it's better and days when it's worse. And I just try to push through.
Okay, Lee, thank you very much. And as I said before, I'm sure that many of us have experienced similar circumstances, and we hope by the end of this meeting you'll feel better.
I always like that. Thank you all. I'm glad to be here.
We try and we're trying to be a very caring and supportive group. So we welcome all the new people. Okay. What I'd like to do is go to open discussion, and just a few little rules, so to speak, is make sure you mute yourself when you're moving around because of background noise. When you're called on, please remember to mute yourself. Unmute yourself. As I talked before, you can go to the reaction at the bottom of the page and of your computer, and you can raise your hand and you can be called on, or you can raise your hand like this. And I can't see everybody, but I'm sure the people with me in the team will call on you. And we take your own notes, and remember that we're not doctors, but we have a lot of opinions in here, and you've got to take what you think is good and will work for you. And remember, some things work for you, but it won't work for somebody else. But anyway, so we're going to open up the discussion to who's our first person.
Well, I'd like to say hello and welcome back to a few people who haven't been here in a while and that we're happy to see back. Rodney Smith, welcome. Chuck Barnhart, welcome. There was another person that I noticed. Rich Davis. So glad to have you back with us for this month. but I don't want to cut off the new attendees because we promised them a chance to ask questions first.
And yeah, I'd like to welcome Lou back.
Yes,
He's
Lou,
now-
you.
Now free from his, the ball and chain of being chairman of the foundation.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, it was time. I was president of the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy for 8 years. And I thought it was time to pass the reins on to some new blood. So we thought. So Ron Lissick is the new chair. He's a great guy. He's involved with medical devices. And we could talk more about him later if you want.
Could you please
Yes.
put his name in the chat though, so people can.
Yes,
recognize it?
I will do that. Bless you. Yeah.
Bless you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah. Will do.
Okay, Rebecca, you had one question you were talking about. Would you like to bring that up?
Sure. Well, I've got two things I can bring up. One is cortisone shots, and the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is drugs. I hate drugs. I'm terrified of taking drugs. And I have heard so much about gabapentin and how it mucks up your brain and it makes you feel awful and yada, yada, yada. My doctor just insisted on giving me a prescription for gabapentin. I haven't taken it yet, 100 milligrams at night. And she said that's a very, very low dose. My question is, does anybody else take that? How does it affect you? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Tell me.
Okay, I'll go first just for
Okay.
fun. I started out with gabapentin, and gabapentin you can go up to like, I think, what, 3,600 milligrams, I think, right? And it never worked for me. And right now I'm on Lyrica, which works for me. So that's my story on gabapentin. It did not work for me.
Marcy?
Anyone else?
Do you remember what dose you took, Bill?
I started out with 250.
Wow.
Rodney? you
Yes,
got hand up?
my psychiatrist told me to take 100 milligrams of gabapentin 30 minutes before I go to bed. And it seems to help my sleep. But I'm not sure about helping the pain particularly. but
Yeah,
it does help
my issue
quickly.
is that I severely cramp up in my legs and my feet at night. I mean, to the point where I wake up and they're like this. And I got to pound on my legs to make them relax. So that's, other people are waving, so
Yeah.
other people are having that issue too.
Let me speak to that later on, Rebecca.
Okay.
Right. Anyone else? Marlene, go ahead.
I consented to trying gabapentin 3 times. I have neuropathology since 2015. No, 2005 actually. It's 20 years. I'll be 80 this year. And I tried it. I mean, I really said, okay, does it give me any relief? Can I deal with this? Can I live with this? Every time I went off at about 1,100 milligrams. Started off at 100, 150, worked up because of the psyche, the mind. It does shift your mind, and I'm a psychotherapist. I can't sit and work with my patients with my mind being in another place. And so I decided, no, right now I don't take anything for the pain. I breathe, I meditate, I move, I sing, I dance. I look at life with a certain sense of humor, love, and do everything one can to deal with the pain. And everyone has different levels of pain.
Yeah.
And so you never know really what people are talking, but I do have cramping.
Yeah.
And the cramping can be ferocious, like ferocious.
Yes,
I
it
was
can.
told, I was told to take magnesium for that.
Well, yeah.
Scott Dine and Lee Lefton have their hands up.
Pat, can I speak later on to the acupuncture that I told you about?
Yes, absolutely.
Certainly.
Let's
Okay.
finish Rebecca's 2 points. Mary, you have your hand up, Mary Erdman.
Mary, you're muted.
I was writing on the chat and it's a small screen, so I don't have my hand up.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, sorry.
Judy, go ahead.
Yeah, I have gotten horrendous cramps they're unbearable. And, one time I actually called my doctor in the middle of the night and he's like, walk on it. And I said, I can't get my foot flat on the ground. It's so twisted. I would be walking on the outside edge of my foot. I have found two things help. If it's moderate awful, the Highlands PM leg cramp idiopathic pills seem really good, or homeopathic pills. And the other thing is I recently have started doing a jacuzzi leg massage. I finally put one of those walk-in bathtubs in, and it is really helping with not cramping during the night. It just beats my legs into a jelly before I go to sleep.
Wow.
Okay, thank you. But I would like to get back to the gabapentin, and Scott Dine has his hand up, and Lee, I want to hear these.
Scott,
Scott.
go ahead, sir.
Scott or Lee?
Try gabapentin. Hey, which one of us?
Go ahead, Scott.
I did try gabapentin. Doctor prescribed it, and I had two reactions. The first one was that after about 2 weeks, my blood pressure went steadily downward till I think it reached Antarctica.
Oh my.
And the other issue was it caused me to itch a great deal. I've switched to torsemide, and the doctor switched me. And I regretted leaving gabapentin because it gave me great relief as far as the neuropathy was concerned, but the side effect was not
What dose
good.
did you take?
Yeah, it's been a couple of years and I can't remember. I'm awfully sorry. I'm not taking a heavy dose of torsemide right now. I'm trying to build it from 2 years ago. I was taking 5 milligrams, then 10, then eventually 20, and I'm working on 30, headed toward 40. I have to do it slowly. Otherwise it tears the blood pressure up and I get itching. But if I do it at 2.5 milligrams at a time, alternating that in and out on top of a total dosage, I eventually get there. It's a slow process, but it has helped me a lot. Torsemide seems to be the answer to me. I do wonder if I went back to gabapentin and built it on a much slower step up, if it would work. But at this point, to stop torsemide and go to gabapentin, I think it'd just be out of the question.
Scott, could you put the name of the drug that you're currently taking in the chat for those of us who have hearing issues? It would help.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mary, you're commenting now on your use of gabapentin? Mary Erdman?
Put out in the chat that way back in 2009, when I was first diagnosed finally, that was one of many drugs it was suggested that I try. And it didn't do anything for me either, so, yeah.
Okay, Lee?
Yeah, I've had a completely different experience with gabapentin. My psychiatrist put me on it 2008. I had severe depression and anxiety, and within 3 weeks, gone completely. And I have never had a recurrence in all that time. I'm up to 2,400 milligrams a day. I have no mental issues. It's been great. Has it helped the neuropathy? No, I don't think so.
No.
So there's good and bad there.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so what do you think, Rebecca?
Well, I don't know. I mean, people are not if it doesn't help the cramps, and that was my other issue. I went to a podiatrist who suggested a cortisone shot. In my one foot is the worst foot. It's extremely painful, and the cortisone did help. So I don't know.
Well, people in the chat have talked about magnesium glycinate. And
I've
Glenn,
heard that too, to take
do you
it.
want to talk about this for a few seconds, few minutes? Glenn Lebowski?
Yeah, I mean, if the actual cortisone shot helped you, Rebecca, that does imply that there's an inflammatory component to your neuropathy. Certainly, certain neuropathies can be inflammatory in nature, although not all of them. But I don't think gabapentin really does anything for cramping. It's not the mechanism that it basically works on. And while it definitely can be helpful for certain people with neuropathic pain, it was originally developed as an anti-epileptic drug. It deadens the response time in the central nervous system. It upregulates the inhibitory neurotransmitter GABA. I know that I was up to 2,700 milligrams of that, and I was fortunate that it worked pretty well. But it is common to have a number of side effects on it. My joke about gabapentin is it'll make you gain 10 pounds and it'll make you lose 10 IQ points. Those are two of the most common types of side effects, simply because gabapentin tends to slow your body down, makes you want to eat carbs and hibernate.
Okay, Rich and Chuck and Lou had their hands up.
Yeah. Hey, Rebecca, I can speak strongly to the muscle cramp issue. I had really, really bad cramps for a number of years. I tried different things, including magnesium, stretching, things like that. Eventually, all of it went away and didn't work. I finally, 3 weeks ago, went to an acupuncturist. They stuck who knows how many needles in me. I asked him, he said 22. Okay, good. That night, I had no cramps for the next 2 nights. They came back, but only in the morning, just before I was ready to get up. And the burning I went because mainly the burning in my toes, and that all but disappeared. And I no longer had to take extra alpha lipoic acid at night before I go to bed. So I'm in a much better state now because of acupuncture. That's my main point.
Wow.
And I'm going to go next week for another puncture treatment. So, you know, but I'm still getting, and I use a Therasage infrared heating device, a pad. I wrap it around both calves and, you know, ankles for 20 minutes at a time on fairly high heat. And that really helps also.
Helps with the cramping or helps with the pain?
It helped with both.
Okay.
In your acupuncture, where are they sticking the needles?
That's a good, they start my feet, my legs, my neck, 2 places in my neck. I feel like Frankenstein, and yeah, all over. I mean, the neck, and maybe the arms, so feet, ankles, feet, legs, arms, and neck.
Do you feel the needles?
A little bit, yes, but not too. In fact, he stuck me real hard here in the thumb area right here. And he said, sorry. But if it doesn't go away in a second or two, then it went away in 2 seconds.
And this is not covered by medical, right?
No.
Yeah,
And mine, by the way, my first treatment was $95 here in Reading, Pennsylvania. The second, from now on, is $75 per treatment.
That's not bad.
And the treatment lasts how long, Chuck?
An hour. He leaves me alone, comes in, checks on me, and leaves, and then comes back when we're done. So he checks on me at a half an hour time frame, but it lasts about an hour.
And what kind of doctor is it?
He's an acupuncturist.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, he's certainly but my daughter up in Maine, and the woman from Maine will appreciate this. My daughter is a sort of an herbalist, and she gets acupuncture treatments herself. This man was trained by her approved trainer. So, I mean, he has roots back to maybe a Chinese instructor somewhere.
Mm.
And how often do you do them, Chuck?
The first one, okay, I did it a week apart, and now this one's going to be 3 weeks apart.
Does it do anything for numbness?
No, not yet. No. And
So
he
what it
told me-
does,
Go ahead, Pam.
Go ahead, Pam.
what does it help? I mean,
My bad muscle cramping. I still get them in the morning when before I get up, but
Got
they're
it.
easy to handle, and to get out of it. And it also helps the burning in my toes that I had at night. I mean, to the point where I don't use alpha lipoic acid anymore to help knock it down.
Chuck, just to help some people out, when you found this acupuncturist, did you have a consult with him about what he was going to do and how you felt and what he could do for you and how long it would take maybe for you to feel some relief? Or did you just blindly go to an acupuncturist?
No, I gave him my medical history basically, and we talked a bit, and I told him what I had and the peripheral neuropathy, and I was trying to help get that taken care of, and to the best extent possible with numbness and the burning in the toes and the cramping, Bill.
I was just curious, did you ask him also, had he dealt with a patient with your situations before? I'm just trying to help people out here.
I did not ask him that, no. Well, the only other person, my wife goes to him also for neck and knee issues, but mostly neck issues. And but I had not asked him specifically that I remember about anybody else he's treated with PN.
Okay, but you definitely had a consult with him.
Oh yeah, I did. Oh
before.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my whole point is that I did this years ago and it worked for me, but then the guy moved out of town. So, but anyway, I think if you go that way, you should also have a sit down consult with the doctor or on what they do and what you can expect. So you just don't pay and pay and pay and pay.
Right.
Yeah. One follow-up to that. Some of you know I've started taking Tai Chi classes, and the instructor is a certified acupuncturist, and she's opening her new studio this next week. I'm going to go to it, so I might be able to follow up about acupuncture in the next couple of months.
Looks like we have 3 other people, Scott, Rich, and Lou. Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pat. So, I've had PN for 20 years, and I have yet to talk with 2 people who have the same, symptoms, treatment, I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, I think. But just a couple of things. I've been on gabapentin pretty much for 20 years.
What dosage?
And I started out maybe with 300 milligrams a day, and then I moved up to 900. And now I've been on 1500 a day, take 300 every 4 or 5 hours for probably 10 years. And, I think Glenn is the absolute, I attribute some of my weight gain to the gabapentin. I'll go along with that. Fortunately, I don't think I lost any brain power, but you never know. But gabapentin is the 10th most prescribed drug in the country.
Gee.
And it was, as Glenn said, it was developed for epilepsy, to treat epileptic seizures, and then it's been prescribed off-label for so many things. And in my experience, it's the first thing that a neurologist or even a regular medical doctor will prescribe for someone that's been diagnosed with PN. I mean, it's just, and I've never had any. It definitely helps sleeping. I take it my last dose of the day before bed, and you never know for sure, but I'm attributing.
It's interesting that you say is diagnosed for lots of things. My veterinarian has given it to my dogs.
Yeah.
Honest to God, gabapentin.
Wow. Yeah.
Animals have had it for a long time. They've used gabapentin a long time. Horses, dogs, different.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I
Rich,
could just, and Chuck is the first person I've heard that said that acupuncture helped him. It was one of the first things I tried. I think she was a good acupuncturist. She was very professional. We had 6 weekly sessions. And this was way back. And, it didn't help. And so she agreed, let's not do it anymore. But it's good to hear that it helped Chuck.
When I said to the acupuncturist it helped me, he said, well, I should have raised my prices then.
Yeah.
Rich, did you have your hand up, Rich?
Yes, thank you. So just real quick, by way of background for folks who don't know me, I got my symptoms in 2018, and it's been slowly progressing ever since. So diagnosis is idiopathic peripheral neuropathy. After about my first or second year of seeing neurologists, they began prescribing the gabapentin, which I have no adverse side effects from that. I was seeing doctors. I saw several neurologists until I finally, got up to Johns Hopkins, where my primary neurologist was Dr. Kornblath. I saw him for about 2 years, and then he retired. COVID hit, and he just he didn't feel right having to play receptionist, fill about 4 roles up there at Johns Hopkins. So anyway, he prescribed the gabapentin, and I recall what he told me. He said, you can take up to, and I think I heard this number earlier, 3,600 milligrams per day. And so he started me out at a low level. And then, when you first get these symptoms, as many can probably attest, it's just very disturbing. Your body isn't ready for it. You don't acclimate to it quickly. And I hate to say this, but to some extent, you kind of get used to it. You learn to live with it. You learn to cope. You go through the mental stresses of it in the beginning, and I did that. And what I found on the GABA was that because it does, it does address the nerve pain, which isn't exactly what I had. And I always ask this question whenever somebody's talking about something that seems to work for them. I say, well, what does it do for the numbness? Because that's my primary discomfort is, and sometimes I can have extensive numbness. And I get it a lot from just sitting, the glute muscles or the nerves through there, whatever. So you may see me stand up here occasionally, but that's where it happens. And if I've been sitting all day, I take the gabapentin during the day to take the edge off. It takes the edge off. There's no cure that I've heard of for this idiopathic peripheral neuropathy yet, but you certainly look for those things that will take the edge off. And as I said at the top, this doesn't cause me any adverse side effects. If anything, it's the benefit is that it can make you drowsy. So they recommend you don't take a bunch and then go drive. So anyway, I told you Dr. Kornblath retired, and there were several on this screen, and I have missed these meetings. I haven't been on a meeting here for many months, since early last year, probably. But it's just a great source of information. And what I was hearing, people were recommending Dr. I don't know if it's Hoke or Hoke.
Dr. Ahmet Hoke.
Hoke, okay. Up at Hopkins. And so I was looking for a follow-up. It had been about I was just getting to the 3-year mark. And so I wanted to see, someone up there after 3 years at Hopkins, you become a new patient. Your records go into the archives and you become a new patient. Well, what I didn't know is changing doctors, you become a new patient regardless. So when I was trying to get a meeting with Dr. Hoke, and this was back in July of last year, I was trying to get a meeting scheduled. He was booked through the year. I couldn't get anybody. So by the time of fall, I get a call from Hopkins and they say, we see you're on a wait list.
Yeah.
We can't get you in to see Dr. Hoke, but we can get you in to see Dr. Rhoda. And Dr. Ricardo Rhoda, I finally got to see him 2 days ago. That was my visit was January 29th. So I drove up to Hopkins and I talked to him about all these things. I said, any breakthroughs? And unfortunately, there was nothing I can share you know, and he is a researcher as well as, you know, practicing and all that. So I just appreciated somebody, you know, a medical neurologist who is specializes in the field you can commiserate with. And he did all the tests and he said, well, you know, the good news for you is that based on your EMGs and your nerve conduction studies that you had 3-4 years ago, he says, I don't see a major progression. So, you know, as we've said, there's a myriad number of variations of this. Fortunately, mine's been progressing slowly. But getting back to the gabapentin, I said, you know, it has taken the edge off, and I've been on it now for, you know, close to 5 years, I guess. I told him the way I take it is I'll take 3 or 4 tablets of 300 milligrams. So I'm taking 9 to 1200 at night. And I told him that takes the edge off. It helps me get to sleep. It kind of dulls the discomfort. His suggestion to me was, well, you know, it does have a half-life and that's fine. He said, but you might want to consider taking it also during the day and having it, you know, remain steady in your body. And you know, that makes sense when you start thinking about half-lives. At one time, I was up to about anywhere from 18 to 2400 milligrams per day. And again, you can take up to 36. I also remember something Dr. Kornblath told me. He said, based on research, he said it's not until that the research was showing to him, he shared with me, that it's not until you really get to about the 1800 milligram level that you start to see a noticeable effect of the drug. Now, again, everyone's body is different. So, you know, people might have, I heard, you know, someone might have side effects at 100 milligrams. It could cause cramping or whatever. You know, I'm not a doctor, but you just know that everyone's body is different. So it's whatever works for you. But I found that it works for me. And again, fortunately, no adverse side effects. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate that. Very good information. I hear some background noise from somebody. I can't figure out. Okay.
Could people be sure and mute?
All right.
Make
sure.
Rich, could I ask you to please put Dr. Rhoda's name, the correct spelling in the chat for those who want to pursue? I too need to go back to Hopkins and I would like to know his name.
Will do. And not only that, but interestingly, when I had my visit, I thought, oh, before I meet him for the first time, and by the way, I just have high praise, great listener, very knowledgeable, and you know, very smart. So I was very pleased with him. But so I read his bio and all the different areas of, you know, each neurologist up there has their own specialty. So Dr. Hoke, what I liked about him was there was more words about peripheral neuropathy in his bio. But, you know, they all have knowledge and they all commiserate and share their, you know, their patients, I'm sure, in confidentiality. But anyway, here's the point. I saw that for Dr. Rhoda, as well as Dr. Hoke, both accepting new patients. That's on their bio, their whatever you call it. But anyway, so I'll be glad to share that.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate that.
Bill, Scott Dine has had his hand up for a long time.
Okay, Scott, go ahead.
I just wonder if people, how much exercising they're doing in addition to the pharmaceuticals they're taking. And if so, how much does exercising help you? I'm thinking of stretching, that sort of thing. I try to do a little stretching, which I think I'm going to have to move up. And then my target right now for walking is about 5,000 steps a day. I also have some heart issues that coincide, and keeping them separate can be an issue. But anyway, I do want to know how people feel about stretching particularly and walking.
Okay, well, I can answer you about stretching. I have been to physical therapists and they all say, oh my God, you're so flexible. I can't even do that. I mean, they'll say, the first thing they say is, can you touch the floor? Can you pick something off the floor? And I'll bend over with straight legs and slap the damn floor. You know, it's like, yeah, I'm flexible. I'm loose. So it's not that problem that's causing me to have cramps. You're
Isn't there a
blocked.
nerve, isn't there a nerve deterioration going on in the muscles that causes cramps?
I have no idea.
I thought I heard somewhere there was.
There can be, Chuck, but it's not necessarily a symptom of everybody's neuropathy. There are a lot of people out there whose primary symptoms are sensory and they don't get muscle involvement. Generally, if one does have muscle involvement from particular causes, you do know about it. Unfortunate, but true.
Marcia,
Thanks, Glenn.
Marcia, your hand is up, I think, or you're waving at me or something.
I'm waving at you. Some of you know who I am. I'm a dancer. I've been a dancer all my life. So when I got the neuropathology, I was 60. As I said, I'm almost 80. I exercise. I dance every day. Now, when I say I dance, you say, what do you dance to? Well, it can be anywhere from Chopin to the Rolling Stones, to lyrical music, to rock and roll, doesn't matter. Get your body shaking. When I say shaking, it's not just the stretching, it's really allowing the whole body to move in ways that are different. And I would say, have fun with it. It's not about exercising. One hears that word and says, oh, exercise. No, you should enjoy your body. Allow your body to be something that gives you pleasure. We're already dealing with the pain, but it really does, and it really can give you pleasure.
Thank you, Marcia. I agree with you 100%. In fact, I always say motion is lotion. Even if you can't get up, if you're in a chair, sit and be fit. Move your legs, do something. For example, I swim 3 days a week, and I find that to be a tremendous help to my feet, to get my feet in the water and move around. Some people walk in the water, some people fall down in the water, but water is great. Just motion is lotion.
Hey, Bill, I'm disappointed you also didn't add that rest is rust.
Excuse me, one
Yeah.
more thing on my notes.
Right.
Rest is rust.
Right.
We have
Yeah.
we have several people with hands raised, and we are scheduled to take a break at 3. So let's go with Bernadette.
Okay, Bernadette, you're up.
Hi. So I haven't really been able to talk to anyone, so this is the first time. In April, it will be 2 years since I was diagnosed. Well, this came on very suddenly for me. I'm 66 years old. But my question is, I hear like Marcia talking about dancing, and I was always very active. I mean, I'm a beach walker, and I've walked, typically miles and miles, and always danced and bowled and stuff like that. But when this happened, for me, it feels like someone is wringing my feet out. It's from my toes to my knees, and it feels like someone's just wringing them. And I have, first of all, such a hard time. I've probably bought 12 pairs of shoes, and nothing feels right on my feet. And secondly, I try to do those things. Like, I have a lot of pressure from my family. In April, we're taking a trip, and I'm supposed to be able to walk like 8 miles a day, and I can't make it over. I'm lucky if I can do 2 miles right now. I'm gonna get emotional. I'm very sorry. But so I'm trying really hard to keep going, but I feel like my legs are gonna collapse, but yet my neurologist says that I have strength. They've done strength testing, and they say that I have strength. Nobody's ever suggested, my neurologist has not suggested gabapentin or any drugs at this point. I have a really bad tolerance with drugs, so maybe that's why. But yeah, so I guess I'm looking for some suggestions. I hear move and I try to move.
Can I
All right,
respond
Marcia,
to Bernadette? Can I respond? I know other people
Yes,
have.
go
Just
ahead,
real
and then we're
quick.
going to take a little
Okay,
break.
Bernadette, I have a movement room, which is not very big, what it is, it's not about walking is a repetitive action. It really does, in the body, you repeating an action. What I suggest is you don't do that. You move around like it's almost going from a samba to a waltz and I say this, not that you do a waltz or you do a samba, but you allow your body to move all different ways, as if you were swimming in the water, and allow yourself to join with the rhythm of the music. Can be any type of music. Then after you moved around in all different ways, then give yourself a little bit of a trial and walk around the block. Because the walking, as I said, it's a repetitive action and your body may not like it. And you've got to give yourself that chance to simply explore different rhythms, different ways of moving, and enjoyment.
Thank you.
And Bernadette, I just want to say that you can start walking, you can just start off easy. And what I say is go slow and just work on up and don't push yourself and just start moving, doing something, waltz, rock and roll, shake, swim.
Shake your booty.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be on your feet. I threw this into the chat. You should all go watch it. You can do exercises in recumbent positions and seated positions. A couple of months ago, back in 2024, we had around Thanksgiving a fit to function therapist who did a webinar with us at WNA. And the link to that is in the chat. You can watch that, get some ideas.
Thank you.
I'm real glad you're here, Bernadette, and none of us are afraid of tears, and we've all been there. So I'm really glad you found us. I hope you feel good about coming back, maybe.
Thank you, definitely, I will.
Pleasure to host the webinar.
Bill, Mary and Lee have their hands up before we go on break.
Okay.
We normally have, but I think very useful.
Who does, Arlene?
Let me introduce our speaker. Her name is Gina.
Should I go ahead?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
So Bernadette, this is for you. I'm really touched by your story. And if it feels appropriate, I'm just sending, virtual hugs your way. I think a lot of us have been in the same place that you've been. And I guess I would say, don't let anybody in your family try to ask you to do something you physically aren't really ready to do, and do what you can. And, we all do the best that we can. 8 miles sounds impossible. I could never do that anymore. So maybe 2 miles or 1 mile is going to be what you get to do. And that's going to be fabulous. So just hang in there. I feel like way back in 1985, I was doing so many sports, including triathlons, which got me back in the pool. And now the only sport I can still do is in the pool. And so for me, getting in the water is where it happens for me. But walking is out of the question, long walks for sure. So I can walk from the car to the pool, maybe, but that's it. So everyone's in their own space. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. And I just wish you the very best, Bernadette. Hang in there.
Also, you can get on a recumbent bike and just bicycle in place. I mean, you don't have to get up and run around and move around. You can sit and move your legs. Anyway, I've got 2 of 3. We're going to take a break for 5 minutes and get up and stretch, move around and waltz and dance and do whatever you can. But we'll be back at 3:03 and we'll continue with open discussion.
And Bill, I wanted to notice that Lee and Betty Ann have their hands up, as well as Marlene next.
All right, we will take them in order.
And Pat, somebody has a TV or a radio or something.
I know there's some background music that I can't figure out who's got it, but they're on my no list.
I don't hear it, so I'm sorry.
Well, I hear it, and it's been very distracting.
It's
so
real
please,
distracting. It's hard to focus.
as I said from the very beginning, when you're not talking, please mute yourself.
What it sounded like was somebody playing that link that I threw into the chat. It sounded like Daryl O'Sullivan introducing that webinar.
Well, somebody's on my dirty list. Get it straight. See you in 4 minutes.
Thank you.
You gotta go dance and twist.
Rebecca, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay, I muted everybody. So when you come back on and you want to talk, just unmute yourself.
Okay, that's fine.
Hey, to show you all what a small world it is, I just met a woman in yoga class last week who has a PN issue to the point where she wears a couple socks to bed and she can barely make it to the bathroom at night because of the roughness of the carpet under her feet.
So you got to get her over here, Chuck.
Yeah, I know. I will tell her about it. I told her, I don't know if I told her about it or not, about this group. I hope to in the future, but you know, I just, my usual advice level is that I take the alpha-lipoic, the R-alpha-lipoic and the benfotiamine and she had electrical shocks in her feet and toes. And I recommended the R-alpha-lipoic and the benfotiamine because that's what helped me out several years ago. And I have yet to get another shock through my feet.
Wow. What's the M?
Benfotiamine, it might be, it looks like benfotiamine. It's a fat soluble vitamin B1. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, folks, we're back. Has the noise stopped, I hope? And Pat, I can't see everybody on the full screen. So you said there were 3 people with hands up.
We said Lee, then Betty Ann, then Marlene.
Okay, Lee, go ahead. We are back in action.
Lee looks like he's off right now, so maybe go to Betty Ann.
Okay, Betty Ann, you're taking over you're subbing for Lee. Go ahead.
Okay. Just to go back to Rebecca and the gabapentin, it's probably been beaten to death, but they tried me on 300 milligrams. I took one at night. I got up in the morning. I felt loopy. I said, no more of this. They tried 100 milligrams. I got up in the morning and I felt loopy. I said, no, we're not doing that. I've done acupuncture. I've done massage. I've done medical marijuana. I have done spinal cord stimulator trial, several injections, 2 back surgeries, which were a waste of time. And nothing is helping it. So it's like, suck it up and deal with what you have.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Wow.
Well, Betty Ann, I can tell you that I've been through I've had PM for 20 years and I've probably tried 20 to 30 different drug cocktails and I finally landed on Lyrica. So it just takes a village. Talk to your doctors, talk to your pharmacists.
Yeah, they've tried all those ones.
But I will tell you that exercise, as Rich said, rest is rust. Exercise, if you can't do anything, at least move around.
Well, Bill, I do Pilates reformer 3 times a week. I've started taking Tai Chi. I do sit down chair yoga. In the summertime, I golf twice a week. So I get my exercise.
You do.
It doesn't seem to be helping.
Well, that's because as the doctor will say, well, Rebecca, you know you're getting older.
No, I'm not.
Anyway, okay, what's the Betty Ann?
I've done the
Thank
same
you.
thing, Rebecca.
Who's after Betty Ann?
Wait,
I've done the same thing, Rebecca.
Betty Ann's still talking. Go ahead.
I've done the same thing, Rebecca. I had a bad setback in November with a raging gallbladder infection, but until then I was going to the Y 3 days a week, riding the stationary bike 5 miles at 80% heart rate, doing the weights, doing the machines.
Wow.
I just keep doing what I have to do or can do and suck it up.
Yeah.
I think most of us are in that position of just sucking it up. But anyway, who else? Pat, help me out here.
Marlene?
Marlene, you're on. You're up.
Yep, you're on.
Marlene?
Yeah, where is Marlene?
I don't see a Marlene. I see Rich Davis, Bernadette, and
Marlene, I'm sorry, put it in the chat. Go ahead, Rich Davis then.
Oh, just real quick. I mean, I would just add, and I talked to my doctor about this too, is in terms of stretching, and there's certain, I may not pronounce this right. There's a piriformis syndrome.
Yes.
Glenn might know about that. Yes, thank you, Glenn. Back me up on that. And I know that can sometimes be a trigger to some of these symptoms. And there's certain stretching and things like that you can do. And he was supportive of any of those stretching, but I think like anything, you just don't want to overdo it. And so I like exercising, and I try and exercise. In fact, after this, it's a beautiful day here in Northern Virginia. So after this meeting, I need to get up and walk around. I'm going to go for a walk, but I don't think it's ever, as long as you're not doing it excessively, I think you're always going to probably be better off. Now, it's not going to cure your symptoms, so you're wondering, does it do any good? But you don't really know for sure. You probably are going to be better off by doing it, but your symptoms aren't necessarily going away. But it's probably, mitigating them to maybe a minor degree at least. That's all.
Thank you, Rich. It is a good day and I'm gonna go for a swim.
Whoa,
Wow, good.
is there a lake nearby?
Kinda. Glenn,
Bill,
did you?
Lee is back.
Yeah, Lee's back.
Lee, okay, Lee, go ahead.
Marcia, when you brought up dancing, that just sparked me. I taught Israeli folk dancing for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
As my pain increased, my dancing decreased to the point where I just can't do it anymore. There is Israeli dancing on Zoom 3 or 4 times a week. It's all over the world, so I can do that. If I get up in the middle of the night and my pain is bad, I just come in and watch the computer and I go dancing in my mind. I want to talk about exercise. What I can do pretty much now, I can go to the gym and I can do my arms. I can also walk in the neighborhood with my rollator. I can't do it every day. I do it depending on the pain level. I read a wonderful book by an author named Sarah Polley. That's spelled Polley, and it's called Run Towards the Danger. She was suffering, she'd had a concussion and was suffering from all the symptoms of concussion, saw many, many different specialists, all of whom said pretty much the same thing. You should go into a dark room, you take this medication, on and on. A friend of hers had severe concussion and it improved. And she had gone to see a doctor, and I don't know his name. He was at the University of Pittsburgh. And he said, what you have to do, don't sit down. When you have the pain, try to move around. He said, run towards the danger. He says, if you think it's going to be terrible, it might be, but you can always back off. At least try to push through the fear. And within about 2 years, she said her symptoms improved greatly. And so I try to run towards the danger as often as I can. Lastly, a friend is a doctor, and he said, you have to move around. You have to improve the circulation in your feet. So you have to, that's what you need to focus on. That's it.
Lee, thank you. Can you put the name of the book and the author in the chat for us, please?
Yeah, I'm on my phone. It's hard.
I can do it.
Maybe run.
I have it. I'll do it.
All right, Pat, who's next up? I can't see the hand.
Mike and Michael.
Who? I'm sorry.
We'll flip a coin.
Yeah.
Let the other Michael go first.
Michael first. Go
Yeah.
back.
You have to unmute, Michael.
Michael, unmute. Unmute, Michael. Can't hear you.
Got it.
There you
Thank
go.
Sorry about that. I actually wanted to quickly acknowledge Glenn Roboski. He's been in every one of our other session that we had before. Without him, I don't think most of the session would have been as what's the word I'm looking for? Explained in a way that we could understand it. So he was integral, wonderful individual to have around during our 2-hour session. In any event, I wanted to just ask. Yeah, I do all of my exercises. I love to do. I've done it for decades. I mean, that's what and I do them every day, and they seem to help. I stayed away from pretty much any kind of drug, any kind of anything, and yeah, I do have numb feet. But my question is, does anybody also suffers from cold feet?
Oh, oh.
Yeah.
Hey, Pam, easy now, Pam.
Sorry
Good
about
to see
that.
that.
We are a general group. No overactive people yet.
Well, it's good. It's good to see that. I mean, in the sense that I'm not the only.
Well, Michael, I
individual.
think Pam is as a response to your question. Are you
Okay.
ready for? Are we ready for Pam?
Okay.
Or is Pam ready for us?
Go, Pam.
Well,
Pam, go ahead.
I feel like I'm home in a way. It's really, I'm sorry that so many people have this thing I'm enduring, but I'm relieved to meet you all. And this is really helpful to me. My feet are cold most of the time, and they've been getting colder over the past 5 or 7 years. And I wear 2 pairs of socks to bed. I can't put my slippers on when I do that. So anyway, that's one way I cope with it. And because once they get cold, they don't warm up easily at all. So I start wearing my second pair of socks in the early evenings so that when I go to bed, my feet are going to bed decently heated. That's one thing. The itching is driving me crazy recently. I am going bazoo with itching. I appreciate any suggestions you have. Anybody?
Lidocaine.
Oh,
Lidocaine, what is it? 5%. Lidocaine, 5%. I almost ended up in the emergency room one year with bad itching on my top of my right foot. And then I took other stuff, I probably overdosed on everything, but lidocaine 5% helps me, but I don't get the itches near as much anymore.
thank you.
I'll put that in the chat.
And if I have a message I want to send just to one person in this group instead of spending everybody's time, there's a person in here who has the name of a relative of mine, and I'm just so curious to talk with him and find out if he's related, if we're both related to
All
the
right.
same.
You go down the chat and find that name and then write your.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Pam,
You jumped up so much, Pam. Is that it?
That's it.
Pam,
Why?
Yes.
I'd like to respond also about the itching. I have only recently developed that as a problem, and it really is just so frustrating because you just can't get it to stop. I have used CBD cream, and that does seem to help, but I like the lidocaine idea. I also complained to my dermatologist because the tops of my ears burn. They are on fire. And she suggested lidocaine for that. So it has helped. I don't know if that's PN related or what, but the 2 symptoms drive me crazy.
Again, what works for one does not work for the other, so lidocaine is good. Lidocaine's a good start. All right. Who else was in the queue, Pat?
Well, Marlene had texted something, but I don't know if she's still here.
Yeah, I don't think she's still here.
Well, I mean, Marlene is off in the locker room. Okay.
Mike Foxworth has his hand up, and then Stephen.
All right, Mike number 1, go ahead, sir.
Well, first off about cold feet, I've noticed at least recently that my feet just seem to get, well, I've become more annoyed by the cold feet. I don't know how, I guess they've been cold for a long time. I think it has to do with blood circulation. But what I started doing is I have a heating pad, electric heating pad, and I set it on its lowest setting and just put it down near my feet. And that seems to help a lot. It's just these electric heating pans only go for about an hour and then they automatically turn off. And that seems like a pretty reasonable approach to, helping you get to sleep. It seems, I thought at first it was just worse during cold weather, but the last few days have been relatively not so cold, and it still was a problem. So I think it has more to do with blood circulation than it has to do with how cold the house is. I did want to say something about exercise. The only treatment that we know of that will slow neuropathy, that is, slow the loss of balance, which is the really threatening part of all this, is exercise. And the rationale for that is that it's a use it or lose it. Now, it's not just muscles, it's also the nerves, the nerve parts of your nerves that drive those muscles. Because when you move a muscle, that movement is signal from your brain, and so it's the whole deal. It's the muscles and the nerves, and the muscles will deteriorate if they're not exercised. The body will not repair them as it would otherwise do. So it's really important to keep up exercise to slow down the process. I don't know, I'm curious. Let's see, I'm looking for somebody, Mary Erdman, and I'm looking for someone who was here before and I don't see her name. Oh, Carolyn are new. I'm curious as to whether when you were diagnosed by doctors, whether they urged you to keep up a vigorous exercise program, because that should be what they're telling you. And it hasn't been historically what the doctors were telling you, because they were never educated as to how to, how to treat neuropathy. Basically, they were told, the doctors themselves, when they were being educated, were told, well, there's nothing you can do. Tell your patients there's nothing you can be done, except, oh, we'll throw gabapentin at you if you have a lot of pain problems. But nothing, traditionally, nothing was being told to patients to exercise to slow the process. But I'm curious as to what you were actually told. And I don't know, whoever else was new here, I'm curious as to what you were told.
Okay, Mary, do you have a response from me?
I don't want to jump ahead of somebody that's been waiting, but nobody has ever suggested exercise
Oh, wow.
for neuropathy. So, of course, exercise is always suggested as part of healthy lifestyles, right? I think since I've had this for so long, I think the fact that I already was a dedicated athlete, if I dare say that, really helped me. But I didn't know what I had until 2009, and the symptoms started in 1985. So I just powered ahead and I kept doing everything. I did 4 more years of triathlon racing, even though my right foot would go numb in the toe cage. Remember toe cages on bicycles? That was a long time ago.
Yes.
I golfed and walked the course always, never took a cart. I played full court basketball until I tore my ACL and had surgery on that. But I continued to play into my early 50s, and ice skating and during winter here. But slowly but surely, starting probably in 2000, before I was diagnosed, I felt like something was off. I just couldn't tell what it was. I went from running to long walks. And then slowly but surely over time, the long walks became shorter walks. And then after my second dog died, no more dogs because walking was too painful. So it was a progression. But thank goodness that I love being in the water. I've had to modify my swimming. I don't kick. It's all upper body. But it does make me feel better. And I wish I could add on some walking, but it's what happens when I walk at this stage of the game. I can walk. I have one good foot, but several hours after the walk, I have terrible pain, and then it lasts all night. So I avoid that. But yes, I think exercise is wonderful, but everybody has to find their game, find their thing.
Thank you, Mary. I agree.
Caroline, maybe she's ready to respond.
Caroline?
I'm back here. So I was only diagnosed 2 weeks ago, so I actually have not yet seen the podiatrist to find out what's going to go on. So I can report out next week to see what they do say. Kind of like Mary, for about a year or two, I've had a weird feeling in my foot. strangely, only when I visited my mom, when I walked on her carpets, I felt like, you know, there was a lump on my foot or something. So that went on for years. And the last year, my foot just felt off. So, but since the diagnosis, I'm starting to feel tingling in my fingers. And I don't know if I'm just driving new paranoia, but it's starting to scare me a little bit because feet I can manage, hands seem scarier. Anyway, so I will say I'm going to have to leave shortly. I had a friend who was coming at 1 who is now on their way early, but I will be back next week. And I want to acknowledge the moderators. This has been an amazingly well-run Zoom meeting. I'm impressed with how you keep open conversation. And anyway, so thank you for what you
Yeah.
have to offer. And I'll let you know what I get told as a newbie as I move through this.
Carolyn,
Thank you
Carolyn,
very much.
excuse
And the check is
No,
in
wait,
the
let me-
mail to you, and I appreciate that. Pat, you
Well,
have a
when I
question?
respond to Carolyn, she
Yes.
references next week. Remember, we are a
Oh,
monthly group.
Next month.
Yes.
Yes.
so- And
Thank you. It is next month. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Bernadette may be responding also to this, possibly.
Yes, I just wanted to say that exercise was definitely highly suggested by my doctor and neurologist. Not sure where that's coming from. It's not me.
Okay,
Um,
Bill,
Sorry.
it's Stephen
Sorry.
Verhoff has his hand up, and
Yeah.
that's where some of the background noise is coming from also.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute and I'm at the pool with my grandchildren, so I just stepped away. I've been listening to this. I'm a Canadian and I'm on the Calgary Neuropathy Association board, and we have a similar type group to this in Calgary. And anyway, I've had neuropathy about 7 years now, and it's idiopathic, like many of the other people. And my just quick comments on some of the stuff was, I'm glad to hear about the gabapentin helping people. I'm on it for, like, I have 150 mils twice a day, which who knows if it's helping. I don't know, my feet still hurt. So maybe I should amp up the dosage a bit, which sounds encouraging to me. And but I'm a 65-year-old. I'm an active person. I find exercise. I do a lot of exercise. It really helps. It just generally makes you feel good, of course. And it's of course very good to move your feet and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just keep exercising even though it hurts quite a bit. On the hot and cold, I mean, I'm from Canada, so when I'm in Canada, my feet are freezing. And when I'm here in Mexico, where I am right now, my feet are hot all the time. So it just depends on my environment. And but nonetheless, it's extremely aggravating and such a weird thing to have in your life. I'm sure none of us ever thought we'd get this in our life. And it's something you got to live with, though, of course. So, but the reason I really wanted to speak up was, has anyone heard of a company called Winsantor?
Yeah.
Winsantor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, they seem to have said they have some remarkable results for peripheral neuropathy. And I'm wondering, has anybody, has there been anybody on it, or is there something positive coming from that?
All right, well, let me, I know quite a bit about Winsantor, but I'm going to pass this on to Glenn, who keeps in touch with them quite a bit. Glenn, are you still with us? Hrabowski?
Yes, let me unmute and I'll talk about this for a minute or two. By the way,
Thank you.
Stephen Kim, who is the CEO of Winsantor, is going to come and do a webinar on what's going on over there in April at the WNA site. That's going to be April, whatever the fourth Thursday is in April. I think it's the 23rd. It's either the 23rd or the 24th, but you'll be able to see it on the WNA website.
Okay.
Basically, their drug is pirenzepine, which was originally an ulcer drug. They discovered early on, rather randomly with some trials that they had, that it seemed to promote nerve regeneration and regrowth. They've been through 2 stages of trials, stage 1 and stage 2. They've been trying to get enough funding and enough people together to do a stage 3 trial, and also get enough people involved so they can present to the National Institutes of Health and the CDC a possible compassionate usage designation. That help basically happens when you have people who don't have other foreseeable treatments for conditions. You can apply to the CDC for compassionate use designation so that you can basically experiment with those people who don't have any other treatments and see if they can get some sort of salutary effect from it. The interesting thing is they've been out recruiting, and they apparently need about 1,000 people to set this up so they can get trial designation. But they do say they haven't had a lot of response to it, possibly 15 to 20 people, even though we've talked about it at the WNA support groups. And I'm sure that it's been mentioned, Stephen, at one of the Calgary support groups. So
right.
we're definitely waiting to see if they're going to actually be able to do this come spring. And I imagine we'll hear more about it come April. At least I hope we will.
I see.
Let me-
Well, you'd think that everyone who has peripheral neuropathy would sign up for this. I mean, if we can
There's a
get
cost
rid
to
of
it, I
this.
think.
Oh, there's a cost.
They
I
need a
see.
donation, I think.
Yeah.
I see.
They need
well,
to have considerable more funding apparently to pull this off. They've
see,
gotten
I
some
see.
donations, but apparently not enough yet.
I see. Well, as you know, like any of you, we would pay anything to get rid of this. And so whatever the cost is, like you can't, it'd just be a beautiful thing if there was some cure for this. And, I don't know. I guess like you said, it's if something's coming up in April where there's some type of, discussion about it, that'd be great to hear for sure.
Glenn, what's the criteria to qualify for their testing or qualify for their medical review of people?
Part of the problem there is that they've been testing it only on people who have diabetic neuropathy. And that's the way I believe they originally configured the compassionate use request. So I would imagine part of the problem is, even if people are contacting them, if you don't have a direct diagnosis of diabetic neuropathy, it may not fit into what the CDC's requirements are.
Yeah, and I'm one of those few or many people that do not have a diabetic diagnosis, and yet I have peripheral neuropathy.
Yeah. Well, that's the majority of us. Possibly it's only about a quarter of people who have neuropathy have diabetes, because there are literally hundreds of causes of it. And I'm not even counting the hereditary ones. The largest cohort out there is diabetic neuropathy sufferers, but it's certainly not the only cohort.
Let me make a comment about what the substance is. The substance is applied topically, that it's applied to your skin. So as far as they can tell, the only nerves that it reaches are the sensory nerves in your skin. And they've had good results for increasing the nerve viability in those areas. But that doesn't affect balance, because it doesn't affect balance as directly because your muscles are deeper in, they're not in your skin. Well, mostly they're in your muscles. And so when you lose muscle strength, which is what enables you to stand up and balance on one foot and do all those nice things, we would like to be able to apply this same substance to those nerves that drive those muscles, but there's no identified way right now to do that for those particular nerves, the nerves that drive your muscles. So for now, its applicability, which is wonderful, is limited to sensory nerves in your skin. places where this topical medicine can reach. And so it's not a cure-all for PN. It's for specific areas. Now, increasing the ability of your nerves to give sensory information to your brain is certainly very helpful, but it is not the whole problem.
Thank you,
Got it.
Mike. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you for that.
Can we get back
Okay.
to Dr. Hoke and genetic testing a minute?
Okay, go ahead.
When I was visiting Dr. Hoke last year, he said that there's a new up and coming genetic test that they're working on, maybe 2 years away. And I was asking for genetic tests based on this and other discussions, but he said it's not ready yet. That ask me in 2 years, or I'll call you or something, and then there'll be a new genetic test out there.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that, I guess.
As Glenn Rabowski has said over and over again, unless we get a guy like Michael J. Fox for, Jimmy Valvano for cancer, until we get a star for peripheral neuropathy to come out and say something, it's a struggle, right, Glenn?
Yeah. I mean, certainly we need a face. I make this argument all the time. Certainly you can get one. I mean, it's happened with other conditions that were not well known before, particularly celiac, when some people started talking about that. So it is possible. The problem is that some of the famous neuropathy sufferers out there have been very reluctant to talk about it. Most notably our just past president and some of the well-known musicians out there who suffer from neuropathy. But we keep on trying and reaching out. We do.
That's one big purpose of all the groups, that all we can do is hope, offer comfort and support, and we all go through it. Is there any other?
Bill Hitchcock just noted that Alan Jackson, the country singer, has PN. Do you want to add anything, Bill, to that?
No, I just saw him on TV once, and he announced that he had peripheral neuropathy, and he wanted to apologize in advance for stumbling around on the stage, and he wanted to make sure everyone knew he wasn't drunk.
So maybe that's part of the embarrassment aspect right there.
Maybe.
So maybe I should.
I don't know how old he is. He's probably in his
stumble around.
60s. I'm sure he's in his 60s, and he's at least for me anyway. He's a well-known guy.
I've got a list here of people, just for curiosity, to let you. Joe Biden, Alan Jackson, Phil Collins, Eric Clapton, George Lopez, Britney Spears, and Jerry Mathers of Leave It to Beaver.
Oh, wow.
So the
At the
beaver
least.
has neuropathy.
I'm willing to bet about a quarter of our current Congress does too.
Yeah, I
30%.
was frankly kind of irritated after Joe Biden made the comment that he had PN. Then every time he would trip or something, people would say, "Oh, he's senile. Oh, he's stupid." If he had just said, "I've got nerve damage in my feet," it would have gotten it out there to people.
Well, we all know that. He said he had stiff person's syndrome, which is a PN problem.
Is it that Celine Dion has it too?
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And Jeff can talk about that if you want to hear more about that.
What are you saying, Pat? Pat, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that I wrote an op-ed piece when this all was beginning to foment about Biden, and it wasn't accepted by the Post. I was hopeful that maybe if there was some discussion opened up, but it wasn't picked up. So
Maybe more of us need to do that.
well, that's a possibility. Tim Kaine, also our Virginia senator, has acknowledged that he has it, but I pursued that a little bit and haven't gotten much response from his office either.
Just a quick update on the gene testing. That was something I had done back in 2021. And I asked my doctor about what's going on with that these days and was there anything worth pursuing? Actually, what I asked him was whether the collection that was made of my DNA, my genes on that at that time were still in a database. And, you know, would they be running tests against that? Unfortunately, there wasn't really good news there, so I was a little reluctant to share. But what he said was, although they found in my particular case there was a mutation, he said the probability of it was very, very unlikely that it would relate. You know, it'd be a gene that they could identify as something that would be attributed to the neuropathy. You know, that they could perhaps treat, but you know, what I also recall from Dr. Kornblath when he took the sample was that over time, they continue to gather more and more and more data on this from others who, you know, submit samples and, you know, they're looking for patterns, but that's all.
Thank you, Rich.
Didn't Dr. Hoke talk to you about any major gene tests coming along in a couple of years though, Rich?
No, it was Dr. Rhoda, but no, he, well, I guess it was off on the horizon and he just didn't, you know, there wasn't really anything meaningful
right.
that he was, you know, that I can recall worth sharing at the time. But we did have a conversation on that because like, I think all the others on this call, we're all looking for, you know, in air quotes, the cure.
Mm-hmm. Well, right. I'll get more information for next month's meeting and find out what the gene they're looking at is.
Good.
That'd be great, Chuck. All right, Pat.
I'm very curious because I also was first diagnosed by Dr. Hoke at Hopkins, and because my mother and sister also have peripheral neuropathy, they did the gene tests for me with no results, no consequences. So I'm not sure. I'm really interested in hearing that. They did say that it would be kept in the database and that I should return periodically because of the new markers being identified all the time. So you're giving me a little bit of a push to maybe go back and say, you know, can I update? But when I heard that you have to wait a year and I won't see Hoke, I was sort of like discouraged.
Write him a personal note on my chart. He might get you in as he did me.
Oh, okay.
Are you sure about that, Chuck?
What's that?
Are you sure about that if we mention your name?
Sure about what? Yeah, go
If
ahead.
we mention your name, we'll
Yeah,
move
go
the
ahead.
chart.
That's fine.
Just tell him that Chuck sent you.
So,
I did double check.
I tell you what, and all kidding aside, Dr. Hoke is very good about getting back to people, at least me.
All right, makes a big difference. Okay, Pat, you're up for closing remarks.
All right, and my last comment before I go to closing is that Dr. Hoke's only answer when I said, remember this was 2015, what do I do now? He said, there is no cure. There isn't really treatment. All I can say is exercise, exercise, exercise.
That's basically
I will never forget that because I was thinking, that's all I have to go on.
That's right.
I do try. And I would say, if you haven't tried aquatic therapy, not, you know, not aqua exercise, but real aquatic therapy with a physical therapist working with you in the water, it was wonderful for me. But the problem in Northern Virginia is it's very scarce. You have to wait. I would go 6 weeks before I could get another appointment. So I lost the momentum and the consistency that I thought was really important. So if you have that option in your area, check into it because it was very useful, especially for balance for me. So that's my thought on that. We're now moving to wrap up. And as you can see here, we put a slide up in case you want to either take some notes for yourself, or I always take a picture of it so I can refer back to and I don't have to remember all this. But anyway, basically we have a couple of things going on in the PN community. Our next meeting of the PN group for DC, Virginia is on March 1st, also at 2 p.m. We will have a woman named Kathy Roboski, a nurse clinician, speaking on pain management. And Kathy spoke to Steve's group in Bethesda Chevy Chase and was very well received. So I look forward to having her speak to us. She also did a small section or portion of her talk on traveling with disabilities. So both pain management and traveling. The next meeting of the Bethesda Chevy Chase group, Steve Klitzman's group, is on February 20th. An important meeting. He will be hosting Dr. Misha Bashkan. I have to remember how to say it. Anyway, who will speak on current NIH research. And I haven't heard that has to have been stopped because of some of the freezes and such on research. But anyway, at this point, it's still on February 20th at 7 o'clock. And if you're interested and would like to attend, you can talk to me or Steve Klitzman to get an invitation. Western neuropathy, I never talk for Western neuropathy. I let Glenn do the talking. Glenn, would you like to bring us up to date on anything you would like to share from WNA?
Well, beyond the webinar that I mentioned before, we still have 6 online groups a month that are ongoing. You can go to pnhelp.org and actually see the schedule. 2 of them occur on Saturdays at 2 p.m., just like this one, and the next one will be next week. I'll also be having my chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy group this coming Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern and so on. And I do tell people we try and get those 6 groups in at least one webinar on a particular topic going each month. Certainly what I'm curious in, so as people found this group today from CJ's group and from other locations, is hopefully we will be finding us there too. But if there's any suggestions about how we can get a little bit more YouTube and social media presence, we're all ears about that.
Certainly the Virginia group would echo that. Any advice, all of you techies out there, if you're comfortable with social media platforms and would like to help us, both Western Neuropathy and DCP Virginia would love to have your input. Also, Lou left, but I wanted to make sure that people knew about the Foundation's webinar that's coming up on February 4th at 2 o'clock, also Eastern time. It's described as their advocacy program update on Capitol Hill legislation and appropriations. And that's as far as the description details were given, but you can go to FPN, the Foundation for Peripheral Neuropathy.org, and register for that on the 4th of February. And finally, we have introduced an exit survey, and we have found on the executive team that it's been very helpful to have people's responses. It's very basic. Essentially, did you find value in today's meeting? What were some of your takeaways? And finally, do you have any suggestions for future topics you would like to see addressed? We tried to do a variation of these open discussion meetings like today's, where it's sort of whatever comes to the fore that people are interested in discussing, and alternating with speaker presentations. That's why we're having the woman, Kathy, speaking on March 1st about pain management. So if you have 1 minute, it will pop up automatically when you leave an exit survey. If you could give us some feedback, we would certainly appreciate it. And we will be moving to what we call overtime. We've had instances in the past where people have wanted to continue talking, or they wanted to meet up with someone specifically and ask them a question that they heard about. So we introduced from 4 o'clock to 4:30. You can simply stay on. Officially, this meeting will end at 4 o'clock and the recording will stop. From 4 to 4:30, it's more of a social gathering interaction with people who want to pursue an idea or a comment maybe that they heard today. So please welcome to stay on for overtime as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Mike, I see your hand is up and you're patiently waiting to talk. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to follow up with Glenn on a question that I think Rich Davis asked, which is in order to increase the chances that this research, which is ongoing about genetic connections to peripheral neuropathy, why is it that they can't just reprocess the sample that they took? In my case, I think it was 2021 or 2019 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what limits that ability to just reprocess it?
They certainly can if they've kept it in cryostasis for a while, but not every place keeps those samples, unfortunately. There are problems of storage, you know, from the economic standpoint. And sometimes once they do initial testing, it's just considered to be, you know, there's nothing left in this sample and they get rid of it. There are certainly people who've had samples retested some years later, especially given, as I put in the chat, that the Human Genome Project has absolutely revealed a lot more hereditary neuropathies. But it may not be a bad idea for anybody, even if they've had genetic testing some years back, to broach the subject with their neurologist again, because the pace of research in this area has been very rapid. There are things they could not test for 5 years ago that they can now.
When I talk with Dr. Hoke about these things, he doesn't seem to get interested in it, and it just says, wait for a couple more years when this other test comes along.
Mary has her hand up.
Mary, go ahead.
Thanks, everyone. So 2 questions. The first one is for Pat. You mentioned the survey. How would I access that survey? Would it just pop up when I exit?
Yes, when you leave the Zoom meeting, when you close the door at the bottom, it will pop up automatically. Just
Okay, because I want to make sure I do that. So I kind of
change the questions each month to gather as much information as we can from the membership.
Yeah, I'd be really glad to do that. And I know that can be helpful. So I've kind of a weird story, and I'm just wondering if anyone else has had something like this happen to them. So basically, I've been really healthy except for having this weird neuropathy thing in my right foot since 1985, which is more than annoying. But in the last, like starting in mid-December, I suddenly came down with severe joint pain, which we're pretty sure I have polymyalgia rheumatica. I have never been in so much pain in my life. It really topped neuropathy pain by a mile. Came out of the blue, came on suddenly. I was started on prednisone on December 30th, and within a week, all of the severe joint pain has gone. Now, of course, when you're on prednisone, plus you have to take Prilosec first, you have all kinds of side effects with that. But I won't have a for sure diagnosis until I see the rheumatologist on February 13th. But my question is, well, 2 points. Interestingly, how amazing that I would come down with a painful disorder, arthritis condition, that there's actually something to treat it. I mean, I don't have any pain anymore. You know, before I started on prednisone, I couldn't lift my arms up. I couldn't dry my hands on a towel. It was awful. But the other question is there any, you know, has anyone ever had some weird thing like this happen along with their neuropathy, or did this just come out of the heavens because I'm a 73-year-old woman? And, you know, that's all. It's just very curious to me.
We don't know for
I've
certain whether or
been-
not, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I've had PMR. Several years ago, my husband died of a brain tumor and I took care of him for 15 months and actually on a broken ankle, but I had had a boot and I didn't need surgery and all that. And I was up and down stairs all day. And I think I was in a lot of stress and adrenaline a lot of the time. And soon after he died, honest to God, I thought I was almost imitating him. I could not get out of a chair, hardly. I couldn't lift my hand. I couldn't brush my hair. Anyway, that's PMR, polymyalgia rheumatica. Almost always, I think what they give for that is prednisone. I think my main doctor maybe started me on 20 milligrams for just a few days or a week or something. When I got with the rheumatologist soon after, he started me on 15 milligrams. And I went down gradually, but over like a couple of years. And so what I would say is, yes, it is like magic. I'm telling you, either the first or second time I had it, the pain was gone. I mean, first or second dose, it was like a freaking miracle when you can't move. And yet I have a caution in that, especially lately, and it's been 3 or 4 months since I've been off prednisone, I'm having a very difficult time now. Now I have comorbidities. I've had to have shots that I would not do again for osteoporosis. I don't know about sometimes vaccines. I take all that, I just feel like I have to. Although I may rethink that, I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm just saying that, yes, it was like a miracle drug. It really matters how long you're on it and how high the dose is. 15 milligrams was not a lot relative. Then I would be like at 12 and 10. The last year or so, I went down by half milligrams. That's because I'm very drug sensitive. So, get yourself a good rheumatologist, and they have to be able to work. You just went off my screen, I think. I'm not sure. Anyway,
I'm here.
Yeah, you have to be able to work with them. They have to be able to Zoom or talk to you, or and one thing I say is don't hesitate to tell them if you're having trouble. And again, I don't know I'm having more trouble now than I have in a long time. And it's hard not to think maybe some of that's related to it's just so hard to know when you have multi-factors. And I'm not laying my stuff on you. I do believe we're all highly unique. And I would say get somebody that's really attentive and it's going to be there and it's not lip service because it's important. It's important with it. And the other thing you don't want to get is giant cell arteritis, which is not arthritis. It's arteritis. It's arteries. And you can suddenly go blind and stuff with that.
My sister had that starting last summer. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, so that's what everybody with PMR is trying not to get.
Right.
Is GCA.
Yeah.
And that's to me, it's much more serious. So anyway, that's kind of my 2 cents. I'm happy to, talk to you about it anytime or anything if you want to put something.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective. And yeah, my sister, who's a year and a half younger than I am, suddenly came down with giant cell, and they rushed her into the hospital for 3 days of infusions of prednisone. Glad to report she only lost a little vision in one eye, has no restrictions on driving.
That's great.
They have slowly been reducing her prednisone dose. So she's actually on a little bit less than I am right now, which I'm on 15 milligrams. I'm kind of on the skinny side. So I think that's why they gave me 15 instead of 20. I don't know. Who knows? But
and I kept a pretty strong diary.
I did too. I'm doing the same thing. I love it. Yeah.
Every day I wrote down, and if I was going down in the dose, I'd write that down. And that's all kind of real critical because, I've found old voicemails where the guy is saying now, you can stay where you are or if it's really bad, drop to where you were before and then come right back in a week. So those are the kind of things that I think is real helpful, is to have that communication.
Thank you so much. And my sister's been working with a rheumatologist that will be different than mine through UW Health. And I think she's gotten excellent care. I'm seeing a different doctor, which is what I requested. And I'm just confident that I will also be treated seriously. I'll let you know if anybody's interested. I guess I'm wondering, is there any chance this is at all related to neuropathy?
Absolutely.
Yeah, can you talk,
Yeah.
Glenn?
All of the conditions that you're talking about, Meredith Mary, are part of the suite of conditions known as the anti-nuclear antibody autoimmunities. I can actually link you. I'll try and get this into the chat
Thank
to
you.
the Washington University Neuromuscular website, which explains a lot of them. The granddaddy of these conditions is lupus, but polyarteritis rheumatica, Behçet's disease, Sjogren's syndrome, all of these work on somewhat similar mechanisms in that they attack moisture containing symptoms, and they attack organs that involve circulation, and can also attack other organs as well. Many people think of lupus, for example, as the great imitator because there are so many potential symptoms. But every single one of those conditions, depending upon the targets, can also attack components of peripheral nerve, and they are notoriously hard to diagnose. So it's even possible you've had this condition, or you've had some undifferentiated related condition, and now it's showing up with this particular pattern for a long time, and it could very well involve neuropathy with it.
Thanks, Glenn. I really appreciate your expertise and knowledge.
Okay, thank you, everybody. It's 4:01. We are going into overtime. We are no longer recording, so we can continue the discussions between 4:01 and 4:30. And again, thank you for everyone's participation, and I hope to see you all next month. Okay,
Thank you.
overtime. It
Thank
is.
you, Will, for moderating so well.
May I ask a question?
Yes, Pam, go ahead.
I have a friend of one of my children is in her early 20s, and when I told her that I had PN, she told me that she has it too, and I was dumbfounded that anybody that young could have it. What resources can I suggest to her where she can connect with other people who are dealing with what we are at a much